It all begins when Samantha is torn apart by the pain of losing her husband Billy, a magnificent man who was the victim of a terrible homicide that was never clarified. She, without having planned it, will gradually discover the truth of what happened that dark and fateful night, risking the dangers that are presented to her, until she finds the real culprit. Sam, plunged into a Great Depression, without faith and without any hope to live, goes with a gun to that same alley in which her husband lost his life. She feels very overwhelmed and has lost all her faith in God, and just at the moment when she is about to commit the madness of ending her life, she is surprised by Mike and Keisha, one of the children who are running in middle of a dark and stormy night, running from the security officer of a warehouse, where he found them shoplifting. Seconds later, she is shocked as she witnesses the moment when Keisha is hit by a speeding vehicle, which then goes on the run. Immediately, he puts the gun away when he hears one of the children crying desperately in the rain for his sister, and immediately goes with the children to the hospital. Sam waits worried in the emergency room, until a nurse tells her that the girl is stable. She goes into her room to see her, but at that moment Keisha is asleep, and when he leaves her, Mike makes her promise that they will see each other again tomorrow, since the little girl wants to meet her. When Sam goes out, he recognizes his childhood friend Joe, and by those coincidences in life, he turns out to be close to the girl and they agree to meet again. Joe remembers his childhood, when he met little Sam at his new school, becoming his friend, he becoming his protective angel, faced with the absolute rejection of the other children who mistreated them because they were older. The next day, Sam receives a call from Mike, very angry because she didn't keep her promise to go see Keisha, since she had fallen asleep, so the very embarrassed woman asks for the address to bring something special to the girl. Finally, he reaches the dangerous neighborhood where little Keisha lives. Since Keisha can't speak, he communicates through a notebook. Her grandmother also lives with her, and thanks Sam for helping Keisha. Suddenly, a man in a red bandana offers the lady a cigarette, and Sam is automatically transfixed to see that this guy named Tim bears a resemblance to the man found at Billy's crime scene. Sam takes the opportunity to visit his friend Joe, who happens to live in the same neighborhood. There he finds out that after being left suffering from kidneys, he has dedicated himself, along with a collaborator named Denise, to helping children who are abandoned by his parents. Later, she watches Mike arguing with Tim, the same man with the red scarf, whom Sam suspects had something to do with the incident involving her husband. So she decides to inform the inspector that he is handling the case, but the man doesn't care, and only suggests that he stay away from that neighborhood. In view of the inspector's refusal, she herself decides to follow the suspect in her truck, but she does not see anything incriminating him, although she is very sure that something had to do with it. As she watches Tim from afar, a memory of her interrupts her. Some time ago Sam, when she was a writer, she was preparing a book that she wanted to read to Billy, about a little bird that she didn't understand. Why did the rain have the power to hide the sun? But her mother told her that she would understand when she flew among the clouds, until one day the little bird in the storm reached them and she could see the sun, thus understanding that there is no storm that can hide it. Back home, he visits Joe. There Sam takes advantage of Mike and Keisha being distracted to break into Tim's house, where he finds bullets, newspaper clippings, and other things that make Sam even more suspicious. At that moment, the man's footsteps are heard and she is forced to get out of it, but leaves behind a box that she brought with her. Mike blackmails Sam into not ratting her out and forces her to agree to bring all of Joe's children to Billy's farm. Despite Sam's insistence, the police do not investigate Tim. But something inside her knows that he must keep looking for another clue. After a fun day at the farm, Joe tells the kids about his time in jail, to divert attention from Sam, since they kept playing with Billy's belongings and that made Sam a little uncomfortable. Suddenly, Sam receives a call from the detective to inform him that Tim was a suspect in the crime, but had an alibi for which he was removed from the scope, creating in her much more uncertainty regarding that man. Joe confesses to Sam that he never got the attention he wanted from his father. That's why he strove to be one of the best computer engineers.
No, always did.
But bad company led him to become a pirate, committing various scams. One day, he was caught after gambling with his colleagues that they wanted to rip off a bank, and he ended up behind bars. Although Joe was not a bad man, he had to stand his ground against his comrades in jail, who used to intimidate others in a proxy war between blacks and whites, and cunningly managed to keep both groups on the sidelines, without falling into their traps. But one day, he let himself be carried away by his instincts and was about to take the life of the head of one of the gangs that stalked the most defenseless inmates, and just before doing something crazy, he realized what his pride and his anger were able to do with him.
My pride had taken me.
There he was isolated for 40 days as punishment for the violent acts committed. Since he had no one to talk to, he took that time to meet God, and it was in that lonely place that he felt his love for the first time in his life, making him a new man.
I've never been the same since.
For this reason, he left there willing to help his neighbor without regard, and to help the children of his community. As they talk, Joe worsens his kidney ailment and begins to drain plasma. Sam runs to help him immediately with the dialysis machine. Minutes later, Joe recovers, and decides to tell the story about Keisha. He began by saying that his mother did not have good company. Until one night, while Mike was playing outside with his friends, a man came into the house. Keisha hid in a closet out of fear, and from there she watched as her mother's life was taken, and then her house was lit. That is why the girl panicked, and finally, after so many chilling screams, she was able to be rescued, but since then the little girl has not spoken again. Later, Joe learns of Billy's death, and why Sam was in that alley the night of Keisha's accident. At dawn, everyone was playing on the farm, but Joe was missing. He had to be rushed to the emergency room due to complications, and he is in very serious condition. Dialysis is no longer supported by Joe's body, so he urgently requires a transplant. Just like when they were kids. Sam, after telling him a story about friendship, gives Joe a drawing of a samurai. Mike visits the hospital and, very embarrassed, confesses that the day Keisha was run over, they were running from a security guard at a store where they were found stealing food. Joe doesn't know what to say, but Mike just wants Joe to be his father. Mike, returning home with Sam, is in for a big surprise when they get Keisha talking again. And her grandmother, very grateful to her, tells her that she promised to stop drinking if that happened. Keisha, very happy with her, shows her drawings to Sam, but only one of hers catches her attention, the one of the same bird that she has always drawn in the story that she read to Billy. Surprised, Sam asks Keisha to explain where she saw him.
Please, baby, tell me where you saw this!
But the little girl doesn't know what to answer, and she is intimidated by Sam's reaction. Right away, he asks Mike, who tells him that Tim gave it to him. So Sam goes looking for Tim, and there he finds the same drawing of the bird. For this reason, Sam points a gun at him to reveal his identity. Tim begs her not to shoot him, because he wasn't the one who took her life. And he recounts what really happened, when Billy was making a delivery, but due to the rain the man decided to wait with him. He helped him with his car, which was broken down. They talked for a while, but seconds after saying goodbye, Tim he heard some shots and immediately went to help Billy, who was very badly injured, so he gave him the drawing with one of the bills he collected. And he told her to find Sam and tell him that he always walked on clouds. Of course, Sam recognizes the meaning of that message, which refers to the story she wrote. When she remembers it, she collapses in tears, and disconsolately lowers the weapon. On the other hand, Joe is about to die and leaves a letter to his dear friend. In it he tells her how much he was pleased to meet her again, and helps her overcome her pain by letting her know how much God loves her. Still in the hospital, waiting to find out if a donor is found for Joe, Sam finds Mike and Keisha's grandmother, who is grieving about what happened to her husband. Samantha understood that even if you feel alone, and you think that there is nothing to continue living for, God's love is always with us unconditionally, and we must continue in this life to continue fulfilling each of our purposes. After all, she understood that God is the one who carries her burdens and removes all depression. For this reason she decides to be happy and forgive, so that Jesus can finish the work for her. This is the summary of a Christian movie based on real events, called Unconditional. Click here so you don't miss the next story.